Good afternoon, cowboys, cowgirls, and outlaws. Welcome to the Slick Sixguns Network. Welcome to the Slick Sixguns Network Patreon. Wow, I am not able to talk today. Consider that in the funnies. Anyway, welcome to the Facebook page for Slick Sixguns Network. If you're tuning in to today's episode, first of all, welcome. And I just want to say that I'm glad that you could join me. If you have it, make sure that you get your cup of coffee out this morning. So we have a nice little cup of coffee for you this morning, and I hope that you join me in talking about our historical Tuesdays and share a cup of coffee with me and talk with me, converse with me. The way this goes, as we started yesterday, is that I am going to cover a certain topic per day for 10 minutes. And then for the next 5 minutes, what we are going to be doing is we are going to be answering questions pertaining to that topic, or there can be personal questions. So while this is going on, make sure that you go ahead and ask your questions while I actually debate the topic. The topic, I will not be interrupted to answer questions, just to let you know. And so, like I said, go ahead and get started. Yesterday, we talked a little bit about a piece of equipment that had to do with the Western shooting sports. If you didn't see that, please see it on the replay. It was talking about the Colt 1860 Army. Nice little pistol right there. I'm describing it. Today, we're going to talk about history, and specifically what we are going to be talking about is, are you ready for it? We're going to be talking about the Northfield raid at Northfield, Missouri, or Minnesota. So, just to let you know, I am a big fan of some Western books. Specifically, one of the most recent ones I've read was about Jesse James and the Younger Gang, the James Younger Gang. This book is by Mark Lee Gardner, and it's called Shot All to Hell. So, if you are interested in learning a little bit more about the James Younger Gang, I suggest you pick up this book or something like it. I think he does a really good job of using primary sources and secondary sources to kind of confirm his story. And specifically, what I'm going to be pulling from this book today is I'm going to talk a little bit about the actual raid itself. So, if you know a little bit more than I do, that's fine. I'm not going to claim to be an expert on this subject. This is just something that I went ahead and read. And basically, I am going to discuss a little bit about the robbers themselves, the actual bank that they robbed, and kind of what went wrong in that aspect and what happened to them. Maybe you do know, maybe you don't know. If you do know, please let me know in the comments section. So first off, the James Younger Gang was very notorious for robbing a lot of places, trains, banks, persons, and they were notorious mainly in the fact that they actually tried to publicize themselves to give themselves a reputation. They were chased down by the Pinkertons eventually and caught by several posses, and as you know, some of you know, James eventually met his demise at being shot in the back of the head by a guy by the name of Ford. Anyway, so this took place, the raid itself at Northfield took place in 1876 up in Northfield, Minnesota. And for those of you that don't know, Northfield was a relatively small town. It was also kind of a railroad transient town. You had two major railroads that crossed through it, so there would be a lot of people passing through there, possibly. But for those of you who don't know a little bit about small towns, people have a tendency to kind of recognize people that aren't from around there. And the James Younger Gang made the notorious mistake of raiding the bank in the day. They did this for several reasons. First off, they knew that the bank itself had I believe it was a Yale chronometer lock on the safe, and I believe what happened is that the way it worked, to my understanding, is that the safe in the bank would lock itself, or the vault, I should say, would lock itself, do some self-locking system when there was no business hours. All right. So that meant that the only time the vault was able to be open and easily accessed would be during the day. So that's one of the reasons why the James Younger gang did it specifically during the day, because of just the opportune time. And also, they did it relatively early in the morning. Well, I should say late morning. They did it probably around 11 a.m., 11, closer to noon. And so around this time, people are kind of easing into their day. Maybe they've got a few things that need to be taken care of, and say they're probably not on the streets. They're actually at work, or they're, maybe getting off shift or something. So I think they also did it more because of a transient time for workers, specifically during the raid itself. This is the raid of the First National Bank. There were 3 workers in there that day. A guy by the name of... why can't I remember the guy's name? Man, this is terrible. Anyway, so there was the accountant, and there were a couple assistant bookkeepers there, to my knowledge. And there was a plan to have 3 of the individuals walk into the bank and rob it. And there were a total of 8 robbers in this catastrophe of a raid, just to let you know. And Jesse James wasn't actually in the bank doing the robbing himself. He actually sent his brother, Frank James, in there with a few other constituents. And they proceeded to rob the bank. First off, one of the other things that went wrong with it, like I said, in a small town, a lot of people have a tendency to know you. So people kind of noticed them right off the bat when they came in during broad daylight at around 10 a.m. They started talking to people around town, trying to get the lowdown on the bank itself so they could do an effective job. And people right away started noticing that they just looked different. Specifically, it's kind of hard to hide the fact that if you're walking around with a duster during a bright sunny day, why would you do that when that piece of equipment is usually used during some type of situation where it's cloudy outside, rainy, and you're trying to keep things from getting wet or soaked? And well, what they were doing is they were hiding their guns underneath. Well, you have 8 guys riding into town on horses that aren't normally being found in the town itself. And the reason why I say that is because a lot of the people didn't really use normal saddle horses. They just used wagons and things like that. So the horses would be attached to the wagons. And so to see a single person on a saddle horse was kind of unusual for a lot of the people at Northfield. So that aside, so their horses were unusual, their persons were a little bit unusual. The people in the town start getting a little suspicious, and what ends up happening is they go into this bank, and before they actually start conducting the robbery, the town citizens are already aware, and they start running for their guns. They didn't really expect that Northfield was going to put up much of a fight, but they had several reasons to put up a fight, and one of the main reasons was the sheer fact that since these banks weren't insured, the robbers were actually robbing directly from the people of the town. So they had more than enough reason to put up a fight and fight back. One interesting fact to know about a few of the individuals at the bank who worked there, one of the workers was a good friend of the local college, and a lot of the college funds that were being used for this college that hadn't been around too long were stationed at the bank. And he was asked by the president of the school, I believe, hey, do you intend to allow robbers to take this bank or take the money from the bank should they even threaten your life? Because apparently the president had been back east where something similar of what happened in Northfield happened, where they actually lost a lot of money, totaling I think about $200,000. but the guy stoically said, "No, I don't think I will," and the president was reassured by that. So I'm making this too long-winded. What happened was, as soon as they got into the bank, the citizens already started going for their guns, started going to defend their right to have some sort of financial security. And they had an issue with the bank teller that was the chief accountant there. And as I said before, he had not wanted to, he wouldn't give up the money in threat of his life. So basically, he got the garbage smacked out of him by Frank James. And he basically just stalled him. And Frank James got all frustrated eventually, and before you know it, the town citizens started firing back at the robbers. Surprisingly, if you must know, the weapons that were used during the robbery were pistols or revolvers by the robbers themselves, and the people were armed with rifles. At least the two people that actually killed some of the robbers, they were using rifles at the time, specifically a Smith carbine as well as a .45-17 Remington rolling block. So before Frank James actually killed the accountant, because out of frustration, he had heard that two of the robbers had already been shot. He went ahead and blew the guy's brains out and left the scene. He died. Two of the robbers died, so they were down to 6, specifically Clell Miller and Bill Chadwell, I believe. Clell Miller had already been peppered with a shotgun blast of birdshot. That didn't kill him. What did kill him was a shot from a .50 caliber Smith carbine that basically forced him to bleed out. When he was on horseback, and he fell over off his horse in the middle of the town square and died. Bill Chadwell was shot in the chest by the .45-70, and he was all told alive for a few minutes, and then he passed away. Right before the robbers left, they came across another town citizen, because the citizens were fighting back, and because the robbers really weren't trying to kill anyone in the first place, but they had kind of changed their minds as they had fellow robber buddies getting shot. They initially just wanted to scare the townsfolk into submission by just firing their guns, creating a lot of commotion and chaos. But right before the robbers left, they committed one more murder, in which an immigrant by the name of Gustafson was shot in the head while Jesse James was on horseback. And that, all told, pretty much ended their escapades of trying to actually get what they wanted out of the town. They ended up with blood more so than they did money. As a result, that ended up in a huge manhunt, and because, like I said, the railroads crossed over at the town, you ended up having Pinkerton agents showing up within a relatively short amount of time. And then, if you ever know the story of the James Younger gang, they eventually were caught crossing several states, being hunted down by several posses, and also holding some private citizens hostage and getting them to give up horses and bandages and all sorts of stuff, because several of the gang members were actually wounded in the process, and including Frank James was one of them at some point, not during the raid, but later on as they were being chased down. So with that being said, that pretty much is my little history lesson for you. If you've been listening into this live stream and hearing the story, like I said, I'm going to use the last 5 minutes of this to go ahead and answer questions. Right now, I don't see a whole lot of questions on the screen, and that's okay. But just go ahead and ask your questions. I will answer a total of 3 if time permits. I think this live stream has gone on a little bit longer than it probably should have. but I'll still sit around, answer a few questions of you, whether they be personal or whether they be pertaining to the story that you have listened to so far. So the coffee that I have today, by the way, is from a local not a brewery. I make it sound like I drink alcohol on screen. This isn't alcohol, by the way. It's just coffee. But a local coffee shop in town. So it's all good stuff, and I really enjoy it. It's kind of sweet. It's not the typical no sugar, no creamer. Like I said, if you're listening into the previous live stream, you'll know that I already said that I rather have some creamer and sugar in my coffee. So if that's you, let me know. So if you got any more questions on the historical topic that we covered today, leave them down in the comments. Make sure that if you leave them, check back. I'll take a look at them. And you can ask me questions at any given point. It doesn't have to be during the live stream. So this will go on until the next live stream tomorrow. I'm going to try to have 4 live streams this week. I already had one yesterday, one today. Tomorrow is going to be interesting because it's going to be Funny Wednesdays. So we have Equipment Mondays. If you haven't been paying attention, I'll just tell you. We have Equipment Mondays, we have Historical Tuesdays, Funny Wednesdays, and then Controversial Thursdays. Okay, and then Friday we're not going to have a live stream. Thursdays, keep in mind that as on my YouTube page, I have a YouTube video come out, so there will be one this week, so stay tuned for that. Funny Wednesdays tomorrow is going to be either a funny story, funny historical story, or it's going to be a funny personal story. I haven't quite decided yet. It may or may not be Western related. The Controversial Thursdays are going to be a little bit more around Western topics. I'm going to try and find some. And when I say controversial, I'm talking it'll be like a topic that's been hotly debated, whether it be right or wrong, that happened in Western history. So that's what I mean by Controversial Thursdays. I could end up changing that depending on how much information I actually get. But anyway, all right. So this pretty much concludes this live stream. Thank you for tuning in. If I see any questions later on in the comment section, I'll answer them. Since we don't have any questions today, I'll go ahead and say goodbye to you. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you guys later.